Alright, I will go ahead and just narrate from here because this is close to where we last ended.
Oh
So
my
we'll
god.
do this.
Oh
So
god.
I'll go ahead and narrate and I'll have you voice the females and I'll voice Sojiro.
Okay.
Alright. It was a small, circular object about 20 inches in diameter, wrapped up nicely like a present.
It's not small at 20 inches.
And this is Aoko, if you could please.
Here's a little something to celebrate your moving in here. I want you to wear that from now on, Sojiro.
Sojiro opened the paper bag. Inside was a white belt. But it wasn't a belt for putting around your waist to keep your pants up. To put it as clearly as possible, it was a collar.
Aoko?
Alice's expression darkened at this turn of events. But it wasn't clear whether it was her friend's insidiousness or sympathy for Sojiro that concerned her.
So, what do you think?
Aoko was clearly a little crazy.
A little?
At least she wasn't totally serious. It was obvious that it was at least half a prank to just see how Sojiro would react. But Sojiro was solemnly considering the collar he had just been gifted. I'm not exactly sure what this means, but it's the first time anyone has given me something like this.
Oh my god.
He actually sounded like this would be a happy memory for him.
Oh my god.
Alice narrowed her eyes at what was transpiring. But what exactly am I supposed to use this for?
It's simple. It's like the golden headband in Journey to the West. Wukong had to wear it as if if he stepped out of line, though this you wear around your neck like a dog collar. Oh my god.
Sojiro grimaced when he finally understood Aoko's mean-spirited gift. He really wanted to ask her what kind of a person comes up with such an evil idea. So, basically, if I divulge any secrets or disobey you, then that collar would choke me. Is that right? Are you sure you're feeling well, Awazaki?
Oh, do you not like it? I tried to pick out what I thought would suit you best.
Aoko still had an evil grin on her face. But Sojiro had a surprising response to this gift that Aoko had clearly gotten as a prank. I guess you're right. I mean, it's better than taking poison every day. And the belt itself looks well made. I actually like it. Thank you, Awazaki. He spoke 100% truthfully. Aoko's face contorted in disbelief, and she could only mumble if he was serious. I'm happy about any kind of kindness. Even more so when it's from you, Awazaki. And with that, Sojiro put the belt around his neck. He placed it over the bandages already there. I guess this works. It's a little tight, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. Despite his words to the contrary, Sojiro tugged at the belt uncomfortably and adjusted it. It was such a perverse scene that even Aoko's face was red as a beet, even though this had all been her idea. Perhaps it was because it gave her such a clear reminder of the scars she had seen the day before. Yeah, the scars.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Is it on right?
Oh my god.
It actually looks nice. Like, he had the bandages there, so you never would have... Like, it almost doesn't look that much different, except the fact that it's like... But...
It does blend in pretty well.
You could actually almost think that's just a normal white collar from a shirt. But with the knowledge of knowing what it actually is. Aoko retreated guiltily as Sojiro came closer for her to check the fit of his new collar. If you don't say anything, how will I know if it fits right? It's okay. I'll just ask Alice. Sojiro shifted his gaze from Aoko to Alice. Alice stared intently at Sojiro wearing his new collar and said,
Punk rock, Aoko, stop trying to dress him how you want him to look.
She could not have put it any more bluntly.
Shut up! That's not what I was trying to do! Just ignore her. From now on, that collar will replace those pills I was giving you. Don't you go divulging any of our secrets.
Aoko was oddly empathetic as she spoke before stomping off toward the hallway.
I'm going to take a nap until lunch. If you wake me up for any stupid reason, I will murder you.
Aoko slammed the door behind her as she left the drawing room. Sojiro stared in amazement. I'll never understand why she gets so mad like that all of a sudden, he murmured to himself, forgetting that Alice was standing right there in front of him.
I assume it's because her ill intent doesn't seem to get through to you. I wouldn't worry about it if I were you.
Ill intent? What? Just now? Alice looked up at Sojiro's innocent response. There was a glimmer in her eyes that showed surprise at her current actions.
It's nothing. Don't worry about it.
With that terse reply, she returned to her usual expressionless self. There was no use explaining Aoko's feelings. Aoko bought that collar for the sole purpose of annoying Sojiro and causing mischief. But things didn't turn out how she planned. Her conscience got the better of her. Sojiro mistakenly thought that Aoko was angry at him when in reality, she was only angry at herself. Alice didn't bother telling Sojiro all these heartwarming details though. Not because it was too much work, just because she was never one to have a meaningless conversation. That was how she had been raised.
So, what are your plans for the rest of the day, Shizuki?
Alice suddenly changed the topic. Sojiro thought for a while before replying. I'm just going to relax until the evening. I've been way too busy recently. I want to watch some TV now that we have to wake up Aozaki at lunchtime, right?
Right. Just keep it quiet then.
Alice let out a gentle sigh and rose to her feet. Just keep it quiet. Sojiro would understand exactly what she meant by those words in just a few minutes.
Oh?
And now we're here.
Wow, what a scene!
Right?
And scene.
Alright.
Sojiro.
Sojiro indeed.
Oh, Aozaki. Oh my god, she's such a tsundere.
And Sojiro is way too innocent.
He's incredibly innocent and pure.
Pure as they can be. I mean, there
Yep.
was nothing to taint him, really.
Untainted by the ravages of modern society.
Mm-hmm. So, with
Oh,
that
those
said,
two. Mm-hmm.
shall I have you narrate this time?
Sure.
Alright, go for it. And thank
The
you.
sun shining through the window was bright. It was just about 9 o'clock, about time for the morning television programs to get going. Sojiro was sitting on the sofa, staring out the window at the scene outside. The view from the neighboring sunroom showed a courtyard in a state of disrepair. Sojiro could appreciate the outdoors in both its natural wild state and when tamed by human hands. Bye, Inkatari.
See ya, Yinkatari. Also, this is Sojiro, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I really need to do something about that sometime soon.
Sojiro muttered to himself, turning another page in his textbook. On the table before him was a mathematics textbook and a notebook with Aoko's name on it. Although at first glance he appeared to be a diligent student studying on his day off, he was in truth only doing so as a compromise. He had given up on his main intent of watching the morning television shows. The reason why he gave up was simple. He was being considerate of Alice, who sat in front of him with her nose buried in a book. Instead of holding herself up in her room, she brought out her old, dusty books to read. This is what she meant when she had said to keep quiet. Sojiro found it difficult to turn on the TV.
I guess I won't be watching TV for a while.
With that decided, Sojiro resigned himself to reviewing some of the practice problems he'd gotten wrong. In the drawing room, for some reason. Hi, Zabeline. There wasn't any particular purpose in doing it there, but he also had no reason to study back up in his room. And so, there he was, leisurely highlighting his textbook with Alice there in the same room. To Sojiro, there really was no difference between his room in the attic and the drawing room with Alice. To be fair, he could probably live with a tiger as long as it didn't cause any trouble. That was both Sojiro's biggest strength and his biggest weakness. Before he knew it, the clock was showing 11. He'd spent 2 hours doing his math problems but wasn't even halfway finished. More than that, he was disappointed in himself for lacking the courage to speak up at all.
In comparison, Aozaki is really working hard.
He dropped his mechanical pencil onto the notebook and watched it roll away. He knew that Aoko and Alice were busy with something since final exams had ended. He also knew that she had hardly gotten any sleep recently. If she had been able to ignore him during exams, she probably would have had an easier time. Today's nap was probably the first proper sleep Aoko had gotten in days. Though she'd shown no signs of exhaustion despite the fact that she must have hit peak long ago, she always seemed raring to go. It wasn't that she was trying to act tough. That was just the kind of person she was. Always positive, always tough as nails. And that was exactly why she came off as completely irrational at times. But if that was the case, you could probably describe Alice in exactly the same way. Sojiro couldn't help but feel a bit inadequate when he saw their single-minded focus on their goals. He'd been so preoccupied with adjusting to his new life that he'd neglected to think about what he was going to do with himself after. Thinking about this cast a gloomy cloud over his heart. He felt like he'd never find a clear purpose in life like Aoko and Alice seemed to have. At least, not since he'd left the mountains. His old life was gone now, never to return. He was like a kite cut from its string, destined to fly only where the winds took it.
I really like that analogy.
It's beautiful. And without anything to ground him, he couldn't do anything about the empty future that lay ahead. He could only let himself fly where the currents took him, slowly losing sight of the ground below.
There's all the conveniences you could ask for here, but nothing I truly desire.
The town was full of options, but he could find nothing. He'd asked himself the same questions time and time again. It never made him feel any better. If anything, it only made him feel worse and worse. That, or maybe he felt that lamenting his own ineptitude would lead to finding some kind of goal or desire someday. Tired of his own sniveling, Sojiro dejectedly closed his notebook. When he looked up, he saw his own face reflected back at him in the TV screen. His new collar was there around his neck, looking as out of place as ever. Perhaps a fool like him who felt weak when faced with others' strengths did need to wear a collar after all.
I should also change the effects. Okay. This is silly. I shouldn't worry about this until I'm actually an adult.
He shook off his thoughts of doom and gloom and sat up straight. After psyching himself up a little, he stood up from the sofa.
I'm gonna make some food. You want anything, Alice?
Sojiro asked casually. While Sojiro had been doing his own thing, he had remained mindful of Alice. Alice looked up, surprised at hearing her name. She had completely forgotten Sojiro was even there. Me?
Yes, you. I've only had some tea all morning. If I'm going to be cooking, I might as well cook for everyone.
Without waiting for her reply, Sojiro headed off to the kitchen while putting on his apron. Alice tried to wave at him to stop, but by then he had already disappeared into the kitchen. She was hesitant to walk all the way in there just to tell him she didn't need anything. And besides, she was actually hungry.
Oh my god. Why are people like this?
Sojiro's proposal made sense, and her empty stomach agreed. Alice was hungry, and Sojiro was going to make lunch. Making lunch for both of them would save the time and trouble of cooking two separate meals. There was no logical reason for Alice to refuse his gesture. She decided to stay quiet and tacitly accept his offer. He's so strange. She whispered the words softly, not for anyone in particular to hear, but herself.
Well done. I'll go ahead and take over the narration for this part.
Yay!
It's crazy to think sometimes that, you know, there's a lot of slice of life stuff. But then we had the whole amusement park where everything was danger all over the place. And just crazy effects too.
Yep.
Like that felt
Yep,
fast
yep.
and this feels slow in comparison.
This
But-
game is intent on causing a roller coaster of feelings.
Honestly though, I think I always forget like how well it is able to convey its words very well. Especially that kite example. I really like that analogy a lot.
I think it's the there's a lot of artistry in words, right? When you
Mhm.
are a wordsmith, if you're a writer, there's a lot that you do with analogy and metaphor. But when it comes to translating it, right? Like we've sort of seen a lot of those 90s isms
Mhm.
or like late 90s language uses and the way they localized for this. And sometimes you just wonder how much of that, if you took those out, how much more poetic this could have been.
I also feel like when compared to other visual novels, it's probably not as fair because they're usually in the perspective of the main protagonist, right? And when you're in their shoes, you're not going to introspect on your situation as poetic as this, right?
Yeah, I guess, but it's who knows? Because the narrator sees into everyone's minds.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of get a little bit of context from everyone's inner selves, if not everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sometimes I feel like the narrator knows more than they're letting on.
That's true. Like I think the game that you guys have been playing, Slay the Princess, is a good example of like exactly that, like the narrator knowing more than they're letting on.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
but that's its own different charm for sure. And I think I like it a little bit better where it's like this, where you know you have the exposition on the screen, and you have an overall background where it's like the common visual novels now. It's like you're just one background and one character, and it's obvious that it doesn't blend in. But when you look at the characters and all these backgrounds in Mihoyo, they actually look like they fit in very well every time. So not only is the exposition beautifully written, but even the visuals that accompany it is marvelous, to say the least.
Yeah, and like because a lot of the story is driven by just narration, there's just so much focus on it. It has to be good.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. Alright. Speaking of which, let's see if I can match even 20% of Nancy's skills. The truth was, however, Alice had been in a bad mood. Alice had been in a bad mood all morning. After checking all the sigils around Misaki City and boarding the first train back from Tokawa, all she wanted to do was spend the rest of her day reading until the words turned into a jumble. Her iron resolve to complete this task would not be interrupted by someone else milling about in the drawing room. This was her mansion, and there was no way she was going to lock herself up in her room on account of Sojiro. However, with that said, she knew it would be wrong to kick Sojiro out for no real reason. As it stood, Sojiro had actually kept quiet like she asked. He wasn't in the wrong here. If Alice had really wanted to be alone, she would have gone to her room.
I should have told him to leave me alone instead of just telling him to be quiet.
Alice had defiantly stayed in the drawing room despite realizing the dilemma she put herself in. She had figured Sojiro would eventually make a ruckus and run off to hide in his attic room. Her assumption could not have been more wrong. Sojiro never left the drawing room. Moreover, she had actually stopped caring he was there. Though he hadn't paid her any attention, he hadn't ignored her either. They had simply sat in silence together, without any awkwardness. Alice felt the freedom of being alone, along with the comfort of someone being by her side. To put it into words, Sojiro was just that kind of person. That was probably the only reason Alice had been able to sleep so soundly with him there next to her. Sojiro continued cooking in the kitchen, oblivious to the thoughts that went through Alice's head. She couldn't see him from the she couldn't see him from the drawing room, but she could easily imagine him cooking in the kitchen.
He really is strange.
Alice resumed reading after unwittingly stating her feelings out loud a second time. The sunlight beaming into the drawing room showed that it was noon. The sunlight actually looked warm despite it being a cloudy winter day. Just as noon struck, Sojiro returned to the drawing room with two sets of plates. Some food of an indescribable color was piled on the large cream-colored plate.
This is...
She hadn't expected much, and since she also hadn't requested anything, she could just refuse it if it was something she didn't want. But this food left her at a loss for words, despite psyching herself up.
What is this?
Alice spoke as though she was terrified at what had been placed before her. Huh? I just put some stuff on top of stir-fried udon noodles. There were noodles there? If Aoko had been there, she probably would have punched him.
Is it just me or does it not really look that unappetizing?
I mean, if you're really hungry, yeah, but it is... It would throw you off at first. Especially for like noon. I guess I'm a brunch person, so I assumed like eggs at the very least. But especially for a posh girl like Alice, I don't expect her to eat a lot of greasy foods.
She probably isn't used to stir fries either.
Hmm.
I'm realizing that this basically looks like what happens when you have a stir fry and you put it on top of, like, you know, crispy noodles.
Oh, yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, like it doesn't look nice presentation-wise because it is everything all kind of mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, I'm gonna make a prediction. She's gonna try a bit and realize it's actually really good. It just doesn't look like what she was expecting.
Yeah, that's how it is with these posh girls. Alright, let's find out. Masojiro just confidently placed the two large plates on the table. Steam billowed from the mountain of food like an angry volcano ready to erupt at any moment. The thick mystery sauce flowed over the plates as magma might from said eruption.
Holy.
And below it all were a seemingly infinite number of slimy, tentacle-like noodles. There was really nothing more to say about it. This was clearly... Hold on. This was clearly the food of a poor, struggling student who favored quantity over quality. All that was required was a basic recipe, the will to cook something, and what few ingredients were needed.
Still one step better than the instant stuff they were making the previous day.
True. The pile of stir-fried noodles with sauce slathered on top was so horrifically bad, it was almost an art form. This was a bachelor's cooking if she'd ever seen it. There was really nothing else you could call it. She had wondered what he was doing for an hour in there. This took an hour?
Yeah, apparently.
That's the best thing about stir fry. It shouldn't take an hour.
Maybe it took a long time to boil water for the noodles. Like, that's the only thing I can think of.
I was just thinking, if anything, it would have to be the noodles. Because
Yeah,
it was a lot of noodles.
The noodles take longer to make, like to boil, than it does to make pasta sauce. So, I don't know. Strong suspicion. Let's keep going.
And it turned out he had been making this sauce.
Sauce in air quotes.
No sauce would have been fine, but Sojiro had wholeheartedly gone the extra mile. Sojiro bowed his head slightly and picked up his chopsticks. He had brought a fork for Alice.
How nice. Oh my god, just trembling. Just like, how do I eat this? Oh my god, this is
I just
amazing.
realized there's a little bit of the sauce that dripped onto the little
Yeah.
She picked up the fork and stuck it into the noodles, half drowning in sauce. Sojiro began eating, not seeming to care that Alice sat there looking like she was about to eat poison. Seeming to view this as a challenge, Alice furrowed her brow and slowly brought the mass of noodles to her mouth. It was a little salty and ugly to look at, but it didn't taste all that bad. If anything, it was actually pretty good.
Haha, called it.
Yep, you called it. I think this might be Sojiro. Yep. So, I want to ask you something. Sojiro put down his chopsticks and turned to speak to Alice. Be honest with me. Mage or not, Aozaki hasn't actually taken a life yet, has she? Alice looked up quietly at the sudden question. She had been inspecting Sojiro's meal, but now she looked straight at him.
That's a rather odd question, Shizuki.
I know. I hate to ask you, but it's just not something I feel comfortable asking Aozaki directly. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Alice didn't respond. Sojiro resumed eating, not seeming disappointed. Alice stared blankly at him slurping his noodles. After much hesitation, she replied.
No. Just like you said, Aoko hasn't killed anyone yet. She has been involved in that sort of thing multiple times, though.
Alice's response was slow and measured. Sojiro still looked troubled. But not at the conversation they were having. Rather, he looked rather apologetic towards Alice. He'd said she didn't have to answer if she didn't want to. But Alice kept talking despite the face he was making.
The day you saw us in the park was the first time Aoko had ever killed anything. That was just a puppet, though.
Sojiro silently nodded. Alice narrowed her eyes at him suspiciously.
It almost seems like you knew all of this from the beginning.
No, not... Well, maybe? She just says stuff like that sometimes, but it's never felt like she's ever actually killed anyone before. But more than that, I guess the best evidence is...
The fact that you're still alive?
Sojiro chuckled at Alice's stellar response. Exactly. Things would have been more clear-cut that night if Aoko had actually killed someone before. Sojiro would have been dead before he'd even saw her face. For better or for worse, Aoko remained inexperienced in spite of her ruthlessness and decisiveness. Sojiro relaxed his shoulders. His stern face gradually returned to its normal, carefree state. Then...
But even so, none of that really matters. That's just the way she is. She acts with reason and uses her knowledge to make up for any inexperience she might have. Shizuki, I think if she really felt like it, she could take another person's life, as you put it.
And with that, Alice went back to twirling noodles around her fork. She looks like she's having fun, Sojiro thought as he ruminated over what she had just said. She was rational enough to accept herself despite acting against society's morals, and possessed of an intellect that exceeded even the confidence gained through experience. Had Aoko been raised to utilize her logic and reason to forge reality from fiction? If that was the case, then perhaps they really were different from Sojiro. I'm sorry, can you please not tell Aozaki that I asked you this? Sojiro seemed serious, as if he really regretted asking. Alice's expression remained unchanged, but she had never intended on saying anything to Aoko anyway. Thank you. I'm not sure why, but I seem to have a lot of secret conversations with you. Sojiro went back to eating his food. Though Alice had still only taken a single bite, he was already scraping his clean. I already asked Aozaki this, but do the two of you always get along like that? Sojiro had suddenly decided to change the topic of conversation. His new topic was the rather cold and dry relationship between Aoko and Alice. Aoko said their relationship was normal, but maybe Alice had a different opinion.
If you're talking about how we rarely talk to each other, that's just what happens. It's convenient. It isn't something that bothers us.
Alice was still twirling noodles with her fork as she gave her concise answer. Around and around the noodles went, but none of it made it into her mouth. What do you mean it's convenient? Do you mean that you're friends?
Would it make things difficult for you if we didn't get along?
Sojiro swallowed his words at Alice's perplexed reply. It would actually, but he wasn't sure how to respond when asked so directly. No, maybe I was just thinking about it the wrong way. I promise I won't bring it up again, so just forget I asked. More importantly, Alice. Sojiro gave Alice a piercing stare that was more intense than any time they talked before.
Serious mode on.
Alice was taken slightly aback at the unusual intense look in his eyes. Her face became slightly flushed out of nervousness. Nobody besides Aoko had ever stared at her like this before. Whether or not he noticed, Sojiro waited a few moments before speaking slowly and with complete conviction. If you're not going to eat that, do you mind if I have it? Ladies and gentlemen, our himbo.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sojiro!
An awkward silence followed.
Sorry, this is mine.
An equally surprising response.
She's just a slow eater. We know that. We know that. She takes her time eating. We've seen this before.
Shizuki had cooked it, sure, but Alice wasn't wrong. He had made it for her after all. Also, hey, Galatea.
Hi, Galatea.
There was a slight tinge of anger in her voice, but even she wasn't sure why it was there. You're right. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked. Sojiro plopped himself down on the sofa. This must have looked particularly pathetic to Alice since she responded with,
Are there any ingredients left to cook some more?
She quickly covered her mouth. Apparently she had surprised even herself. It was quite unusual for her to ask something like that. Nope, I used everything and made some for Aozaki as well. Sojiro stared a bit regretfully at Alice's plate as he responded. Alice could have just let it go, but for some reason, she felt the need to speak up again.
But Aoko is still sleeping.
Yeah, but I'm gonna wake her up soon, and she'd have told me to make her something anyway. Speaking of which, it's almost 1 o'clock. I'll go and wake her up now.
Didn't she say she'd kill you if you woke her up?
Alice wasn't sure why Sojiro was willing to take such a risk. Sojiro agreed, but started walking anyway. Maybe so, but I feel like if I don't wake her up now, she's going to end up killing me later anyway. His words were surprisingly affectionate.
Affectionate?
That's what you call a masochist.
This is a weird form of affection, my dude.
Leaving
This
Alice.
man.
Leaving Alice with only that, Sojiro headed to Aoko's room. Alice watched him leave in silence before taking another bite of the stir-fried noodles. Glancing at the door to the hallway to make sure nobody was coming, she took another bite. She repeated that process many times before finishing her food. It was then that she heard Aoko's wrath coming from the second floor.
Oh my god.
Alice stood up and began solemnly clearing the table, feeling a bit sorry for what Sojiro was dealing with. She knew she didn't really have to, but she felt like it was the least she could do for him. She'd never really expected to feel this way. But he cooked for her, and it was surprisingly good. Almost enough to make her forget how bad he was at making tea.
I want fancy teacups and tea now.
Mm-hmm.
When are we having a tea party?
That's a good question. Maybe... I'm kind of curious. Let's see.
Fancy
would-
tea party?
If I were to plan it randomly, let's say right here. Oh, that's pretty cheap. That's not so bad.
Nani?
Don't worry about it.
Eh.
Alright, next chapter. Scarred. Scar Red.
Oh,
that's
dear.
that's clever. I just realized that's really clever.
Oh dear, that sounds really ominous.
It's just Sojiro after being beat up by Aoko.
He's already scarred.
Alright, can I have you do the narration now?
December, the month when even monks were busy at work. It was the culmination of the year. Perhaps due to all the put-off tasks built up through the seasons, the month always seemed to pass by in the blink of an eye. It was a day like any other in December. Though none of them were any the wiser to what the others were doing, Aoko, Alice, and Sojiro had spent the day attending to their own affairs. Oh, that sky is beautiful. Damn.
Yeah, honestly. Hold on, let's see who's... Oh yeah, that is Aoko.
What is this? Aoko kept the urge to kill out of her voice, but her menacing tone still reverberated in the room. The sunroom was often used to dine in when the weather was nice, since it overlooked the courtyard. It was a room decorated with high-quality furniture and upholstery befitting an historic Western-style mansion. The fusion of Chinese Chippendale aesthetics and traditional English Georgian elegance caused even Aoko, a commoner, to think twice about doing anything unaristocratic on the grounds. Truthfully, she was sickened by the flagrant waste of money, but none of it was paid for out of her pocket, so she could have cared less what the purchasers spent their money on. Couldn't have. 3 unbelievably out-of-place offerings sat atop the lavish sunroom's table as if enshrined. Oh, my heart! In stark contrast to the room, they appeared like meals prepared by aliens. Sojiro, is this your idea of a practical joke? Aoko's trembling fists clenched and unclenched as she questioned the one responsible for today's menu. The clock struck 9 in the evening. Holy, y'all eat late. Tonight's executive chef nodded dutifully, eager to explain.
That's around the time I eat.
Dang, you eat late. I like to eat at like 5 so I can digest and go to bed not feeling gross.
It's mostly due to habit of like working all the way until 10 o'clock at night.
I thought you were going to say it's due to my bachelor habits or something like that, because we just had a conversation about everyone here eating like bachelors.
I mean, that too, but it's also because of that.
Okay, well, maybe you shouldn't be such a workaholic.
Well, it was not my choice. I was running a convenience store at the time.
True. Still. Take better care of yourself, Balance. I'm watching you.
But it tastes so good around that time.
When it's instant noodles at like 9 p.m., I get it. Because that's when the salt cravings really hit.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand.
It's a new product from my workplace. You know, we said it looks and tastes fake, but honestly, I think it's better than the real thing.
Oh my god.
He needs to be punched for that.
Oh my god.
Besides, they're only 40 yen each after the company discount. 40 yen?
Oh my god!
It is the 90s! Holy shit.
That's like 25 cents! Ho, ho, ho. I really question the quality of this meal now.
That means it's like $1 for without the discount? Or even without the discount, it'd probably actually be more like 60 cents, right?
Yeah, I don't think company discounts are that steep, right?
No, not that steep. Yeah, that's what I was. Wow, holy cow. A steal, right? Even with the egg on top, it's still only 60 yen or so.
Fresh eggs that aren't like freaking $1 each? What?
I miss those times.
Yeah, right.
Oh, this is you.
I know. I was just like getting over the fact that like I'm sorry. We're having a fresh egg over noodles at less than $1. We're talking like a 50-cent meal. Like this isn't actually possible right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
The corner-cutting chef seemed pleased with himself. Alko wanted to grumble that the real steal was her appetite. Well, isn't that nice for you? Now, where's tonight's dinner? Chef Sojiro thought for a second or two, then clapped his hands together in realization.
Ah, Aozaki. You know if you eat too much, you'll get fat.
No! No!
He's just that he like actually sees the landmines and voluntarily steps on them.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. So what you're telling me is this slop is what you call dinner?
No complaints. I'm not making any. Oh, wait, no. No complaints. I'm not making anything else.
Alice looks almost impressed. The two stood there, glaring at each other. Come on, there's evens to me in the back. Oh, that's perfect.
Oh my god.
Alko gave off an air that said she would rather die than eat his food. While Sojiro was convinced she would capitulate eventually. He even considered chiding her for being a picky eater. Oh my god. Oh my god. She is gonna be throwing hands so fast.
First it was a landmine, now he's just voluntarily stepping into a bear trap.
As usual, the two could not see eye to eye. No way. There's no way I'm eating whatever this is.
Don't be such a spoiled princess. Besides, tonight's dinner only cost 200 yen for the three of us.
Sojiro puffed his chest out at his penny-pinching prowess.
You know, he is paying rent. He doesn't have any money to spend, so I don't blame him. I don't blame him,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, I know, but also he's still cooking better than anything they ever used to make.
If anything, they probably would have cooked the same exact thing.
Yep, probably, and probably less good. Alice alternated her gaze between the two quarreling roommates and the strange food before her, which she had also never seen before. She remained a mere bystander in all this. Unbelievable! A 60 yen meal for one person? What year is it? These days, even cheap beef bowl places spend more on ingredients.
Awazaki, if we ate the way you wanted with only 30,000 yen for food each month, I'm pretty sure we would all starve to death before you two could kill me.
He says it so honestly, too.
I think this is still Sojiro. I mean, sure, the meat Alice cooked yesterday was really something. I was impressed at the difference in quality at 700 yen per ounce.
Oof.
Even the 100% juice from the co-op. Wait, I don't think Sojiro would know what a co-op is. Oh, it is actually. Even the 100% juice from the co-op made me think the idea of fresh food. But if we keep eating like we have for the last 3 days, we'll go broke.
Is he the only financially responsible one in the house?
Maybe.
Is he?
Maybe, like, Alice is probably filthy rich, so she doesn't have to worry about it. Aoko is just kind of like eating whatever scraps that Alice is letting her. And I don't know.
Sojiro's like the only one who's making any sense here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Good quality food is worth it because, overly processed stuff isn't good for you, but times of need, man. Times of
Mhm.
need. Sojiro was making perfect sense for once. See, even the narrator agrees with me.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, neither Aoko nor Sojiro noticed the silent stare of disapproval coming from Alice. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And I should note a meal like yesterday's was a rarity, but maybe I should thank you since your meals have inspired Alice to put some effort into hers for a change. Oof. With Aoko's words, Alice closed her eyes. She might have been trying to quell her anger. Who is this?
Let's see. That first one is Alice, I believe.
Okay. You astonish me, you know. How did you even get by before me? We made it work, thank you very much. Besides, living life one step from starvation keeps you on your toes. Do you want to starve? Her brazen response left him speechless.
Oh, maybe it was Sojiro. Oh well.
Though a story for another time, Sojiro remembered a warning from a certain vice president who had complained about a certain president incessantly bugging him to take her to lunch at the end of the month. But that was neither here nor there. Is that Aoko? Yeah, it has to be.
Yep.
That was then, and this is now. Where are those cooking skills you displayed before, Sojiro? That's the only reason I trusted you with today's meal. Out of everything, that seemed to be what ate at Aoko the most. The stir-fried yaki udon he had prepared previously had been very well received. It had even melted away Aoko's morning grumpiness with just one bite. However, Sojiro had not seen fit to tell him that it was one of the only dishes in his limited repertoire. For a bachelor, the ability to cook is as close to a superstore as one could get. A superpower as one could get. Would I say superstore? Wow. To a superpower. 15 years into the future, it would likely become a highly desirable trait.
Hmm.
Hum? Regardless, that misunderstanding had led Aoko and Alice to overestimate Sojiro's culinary talents. Her ire finally made sense to Sojiro.
Alright, fine. We can order in. There's nothing here to cook anyway.
Don't waste the food!
But only if you clear up.
Aoko basked in her victory. It was then, after seeing Sojiro's face as he went to fetch the delivery menu, Aoko realized her misreading of him. What annoyed Aoko most was the fact that such little effort was put into dinner. But to Sojiro, this dinner had not been about cutting corners, but rather about a meal he had legitimately wanted to try.
Aw.
Aoko ruminated on how it could probably pass as food for someone raised in the mountains. And then...
Alice? Yeah.
Alice? What are you doing? Aoko noticed Alice standing near the table holding one of the bowls tightly. Would you put that down already? I need to give those back to Sojiro so we can eat a proper meal. Despite Aoko's words, Alice stood her ground firmly, clutching the bowl. In fact, she seemed to be embracing it. This one is mine. Alice's faint voice drifted across the sunroom. And just like that, the night's menu had been decided by majority rule. Aoko's shoulders sank in disappointment at her lot that evening. Come to think of it, Alice was always peculiar about things she deemed hers. It was morning, and there were 10 days left in December. Oh, it's the 20th, 21st? While the rest of the city was preparing for Christmas festivities, Sojiro headed to his part-time job. Though it looked like it could snow at any minute, the tree-lined streets were busy with foot traffic. These days were particularly merry. Students on winter break spent their days hanging out with friends while they counted down the days until the holidays. Colorful Christmas cakes lined storefronts, placed like charms to ward off evil. Huge advertisements adorned the sides of buildings. The station plaza bustled with pop-up stalls. Sojiro stepped out of the milling crowd and into a phone booth. Safe from the winter wind, the inside seemed warm by comparison. The thought that it would actually be nice to have one in the mountains crossed his mind as he inserted a coin into the phone. He dialed a number from memory, his fingers punching the keys with a somewhat practiced motion. After about 5 seconds, the phone began to ring. Another 5 seconds, another ring. 10 seconds had passed. He gazed through the window at the various signs on the surrounding buildings and marveled at the sheer number of people out and about so early. The number he dialed was that of Tobimaru Tsukiji. The Tsukiji name was well known in Misaki as the distinguished landowning family going back generations. Incidentally, their residence was located in the neighboring town of Yashirogi. A kind, elderly female voice finally replaced the ringtone.
Also, welcome in, Kanye.
Hello.
Hello.
So, Kanye, would you be kind to be this kind, elderly female voice that replaces the ringtone?
Yeah, I could do that.
Never mind.
I could be kind, elderly,
And female?
and a female voice.
Uh-huh.
This is
I
probably
believe you.
Skiji, so and it'll probably be Sojiro. So since you're just here, I'll help you voice the two of them.
Okay.
Sounds good. After her polite greeting, she handed over the phone to Sojiro's target.
Morning, Tobimaru. Hey, morning.
He was still half asleep, or so it sounded to Sojiro.
I need to ask you something. Do you have a second? Speak.
His response did not exactly inspire confidence in Sojiro, but he cut right to the chase. Balance, are you sure you don't want to take some of the lines? It's a little bit much for Kanye to be doing both sides of a phone conversation.
I think it's funny, so I'm letting him.
Okay.
Awesome. Hmm.
There was a long pause. He was hard to read from this end of the receiver.
Ow.
This is what you wake me up for? Listen here, Sojiro. If she's mad at you, take her out somewhere. Gotta butter her up. Show her a good time. If that doesn't do the trick, then cut her loose. What do you want me to say?
And with a
Peace.
Tobimaru hung up.
That was well timed.
It may have been 10 in the morning to Sojiro, but after dealing with what seemed like a 6 o'clock Tobimaru, all he could do was nod earnestly. He had a feeling his friend had just been trying to end the call, but deep down, he knew the advice was sound.
Alright, let's actually have Kanye do the narration since he has just arrived. Would you
Aw, baby.
be kind to do that for us, Kanye?
Okay. Excuse me. After the phone ordeal, Sojiro finished up his shopping and returned to the mansion just before noon. He was greeted by the sight of Alko and Alice sitting in silent gloom. Though he was unsure of the circumstances, from the outside looking in, it seemed like the aftermath of an argument. The silence was as deafening as a blizzard, or rather, the bitter cold and stinging wind of it. One might also compare the drawing room to an enormous walk-in freezer.
Jeez.
It would not have been surprising to look up and see icicles hanging up from the ceiling.
Nancy, I'd like you to voice Sojiro, please.
They're at it again.
He felt like a zookeeper pained to see the raccoon and penguin at each other's throats. In fact, he had seen this literally happen the other day at his zoo janitor job, and now he glanced between them like a zookeeper trying to gauge the animal's temper. Needless to say, the silence meant that they were not fighting at this moment. Dinner served as a respite from the conflict. Sojiro was oblivious to the circumstances surrounding the quarrel, but their day in and day out battles against the mysterious mage was clearly taking a toll.
Not that Alice looks anything but grumpy.
Across from the quiet and contemplative Alko, Alice was reading an old book in her lap, as she was accustomed to. The book seemed somehow heavier than the other ones.
I'm home. Looks like I just missed the discussion.
He greeted them as he took off his coat.
I'll take care of these guys.
Yay!
If only. Discussion implies progress. You're way off, Sojiro.
Without quite knowing what Alka was getting at, Sojiro quizzically tilted his head. He told himself not to think too hard into it, but it only made him more
Sorry. It was curious.
more curious. Ooh, I had to stream back up. And that's you guys.
In fact, we're not even close to any agreement. If anything, I'd say we debated ourselves into a corner.
Seemingly too preoccupied to scold Sojiro, Alka waved her hand as though shooing off an insect. But Sojiro, being Sojiro,
Okay, let me start over. Hey, you two, any progress since last time?
Sojiro held his ground.
That's none of your business. What did I tell you? Mage affairs are not for your ears.
Her response was calm, but pointed. Surliness was her weapon of choice, and today she seemed determined to swing it at will.
Yes, I remember. Did you two eat yet?
Sojiro chose to brush off Alko's attitude. If Alko's weapon was surliness and Sojiro's was
Blitheness?
blightedness?
That's how
Whoa.
I would read it. Yeah.
Thank you, Nasu. He wielded just enough of it to make Alko flinch.
What's with you today? Did something nice happen to you?
Sojiro shook his head.
Not yet, but I do have a proposal for you.
He dug around in the pocket of his coat, which was now on a hanger. Alko gave him a dubious stare while Alice's ears perked up at his upbeat tone.
Actually, today was payday, which means I have money. We should go out and do something.
He spoke with a warm smile as he removed his wallet from his coat pocket. The other two did not know what to make of it.
So, Jiro?
She wanted to take an exception to his bright mood, but found herself wrestling with the idea of reacting positively to it. After all, he was making a gesture of good faith to try and make things better with what little funds he had. The thought itself was not a bad one. While there was always a chance that Alice would keep quiet until the slightest thing annoyed her, at which point she would ruin everything, Alka wanted to accept his goodwill. However, she was not in the mood to walk around town with either of the two, nor was the timing ideal.
Sorry, but I'm kind of busy. I'll take you up on it some other time, though. Just remind me.
Alice seemed to give the same response, though wordlessly. Sojiro was not about to be held back by the sullen mood.
Busy doing what? Sitting here in silence? Wasn't it you, Aozaki, that said a change of pace was important when working overnight? Sometimes you need to take one step back to take 2 steps forward.
Sojiro spoke with unusual confidence as he drew 2 tickets from his wallet and slapped them on the table. At first glance, they looked like advance tickets to a movie, but not quite. They were tickets to a famous aquarium. To get there, they would have to take a rapid train and subway to a city several times more modern than Misaki. It housed not only the biggest shopping mall in the prefecture, but also a multi-purpose auditorium, set to open next year, destined to host international conferences and stage productions.
Oh, and eat some curry at Misayan. On me.
Saying that, he slapped 2 bills on the table as if he struck it rich. It was Sojo's turn to make dinner tonight, after all.
Be seeing you.
His business concluded, Sojiro returned his wallet to his coat pocket. It was then that Aozaki Alko had realized what Sojiro meant by seeing you.
You mean you're not coming with us?
I have to work tonight.
Sojiro was almost too quick with his response, helping Alko to see things for what they really were. Rather than for Sojiro's benefit, his gesture was instead an attempt to ease the tension that had built up between Alko and Alice. Though if asked, both girls would tell you it was an unnecessary gesture. Still, for him to pay this much attention to the household, if anything, gave Alko a reason to reflect on her own immaturity. Alko glanced over to the still-seated Alice. At the same time, Alice peeked up at Alko from behind her book. They kept still, staring at each other.
I'll go if you go. I'm almost done with my book. Okay, it would be a waste not to.
Alko stood up from the sofa, resigned to her decision. Sojiro watched on, a satisfied smile on his face.
Master matchmaker right there.
Now, Kiev.
Now, Kiev. 20 minutes later. As Alko and Alice were done getting ready, Alko had called out to Sojiro in the drawing room.
Alright, we're leaving now. Sojiro?
Sojiro was crouched in front of the television, unaware that the two had entered the room.
Are you fiddling with the VCR?
Oh, hey, good timing. How do I...
Pausing his audiovisual struggles, Sojiro turned around.
Whoa! Look at that. He's checking the girls out. It's okay, he gets a pass because they were checking him out too.
True. 1 for 1.
He froze in shock,
Ow.
forgetting what he was about to say.
You okay? Listen, we're taking you up on your offer and going out. Did you drop something behind the TV?
Sojiro appeared to have gone stiff. Alko stared at him curiously.
What a strange choice of words.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but
Though Alice silently nodded along with his bizarre reaction. She kept her thoughts to herself.
She actually heard the narrator.
No. It's just...
Still gawking, his voice stuck in his throat. He was blissfully unaware that the shock he was experiencing was the direct result of his emotional state.
Spit it out already. God, I wish your weird reactions made sense sometimes. Does Alice have something on her face or...
Alice looked on in silence. He was not confused or in a daydream, not much he could tell, but this frozen look was by all accounts at first for Sojiro.
So, what is it then?
Oh, this thing here. How exactly do I use it?
Shaking his head to regain his composure, Sojiro pointed to the VCR. A VHS player sat at the shelf beneath the TV.
What? You want to record something?
Alko walked over and crouched next to Sojiro in front of the TV.
No, I just borrowed a video from Kinomi, but it won't play.
Well, for starters, the TV isn't turned on.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
With a click, the TV screen flickered alive.
This is another one of those moments where, again, like, these characters feel actually in the game, you know? Not just like sprites on top of a background.
Mm-hmm.
Next, you have to switch to the video input. That's weird. It's all dark. Knowing Kinomi, I'm surprised the recording doesn't start from the very beginning.
During this time period, videotapes were still rather expensive. Therefore, it was only natural for people to not want to waste a single second of the tape's 120-minute capacity.
I remember those days.
Mm-hmm. Especially considering how serious he is about his hobbies. Oh well, we'll have to fast forward.
Alko picked the small remote up and quickly pushed a button marked forward.
Hmm?
The VCR beeped in protest. Several clicks and thuds, there was an empty whir from within the machine.
Don't look at me. I didn't break it. I think.
The vast majority of people who say this are actually very prone to destroying electrical equipment, but that is a separate matter.
Thanks, narrator!
There's no tape in here.
As soon as the words left her lips, it all made sense.
Tape?
Sojiro imagined adhesive tape, clearly confused.
Sojiro, did Kinome give you something?
Oh, you mean the thing on the table?
Though she should have been used to it by now, she caught herself wondering if Sojiro was being stupid deliberately.
Sojiro, what exactly did Kinome say? Do you remember?
Yeah, he said, I'll totally lend you this tape. When you get home, just watch the TV.
Oh my god. He followed instructions to the T.
Yep. Instructions unclear. Stared at blank TV all night.
Great. So he left out the most important part. Honestly, this is so sad, it's almost scary. Just when I thought you were finally adapting. How you make it through a day is a mystery to me.
Exasperated, Ako fetched the tape in question. It was labeled Gaku Gaku, Animal Kingdom, African Adventure. To Alco, this knocked Hosuke Kinome down a level on the ratings file she kept with the student council. Blech.
Okay. You put the tape in the VCR and push play. The tab isn't broken, so just be careful not to hit the record button.
What's a tab?
Right here. See the indent on the side of the tape here? The tab is this little plastic cover. If you snap this tab off, you can't record on this tape anymore. How can I explain this? Think of it like a notebook for class. It's like a sealant you spray over the page so it can't be erased. Think of it as a physical barrier against common human error.
She inserted the tape into the VCR and handed the remote to Sojiro. Just a small interaction used up a fair bit of Alco's patience. Completely ignorant to Alco's feelings, Sojiro gleefully pressed the play button.
Oh god. I was afraid we weren't gonna make it this far for a second there. That was a bit much. Even for someone as out of— Oh wait, that's not me.
You're right, yeah, that's Alco. Alright. Phew. I was afraid we weren't going to make it this far for a second there. That was a bit much, even for someone as out of place as you are. What were you doing up there in the mountains? Don't tell me you were some karate master training against bears or something?
Even Sojiro managed to pick up on Alco's rude tone, and he frowned disapprovingly.
Was that an attempt to insult me?
I mean, you mean just now or all the other times?
Alco answered unapologetically. On the TV, a crocodile's yawning mouth appeared.
Don't be ridiculous. Why would anyone train against bears?
Sojiro turned toward the TV in a huff. Perhaps because of his rare outbursts, as he turned to face with a gaping maw of the crocodile on the TV, he fell backwards in surprise. Alco unpursed her lips upon seeing this, delighted. It was relieving to see the boy disarmed.
Hey, Aozaki, these machines have gotten kinda dusty. Don't you clean them?
Why bother? I hardly ever use them and Alice doesn't watch TV. I bought some exercise videos to train with, but got bored of them. Who would have thought you actually need to do the exercise instead of just watching the damn thing?
Alco shrugged at her past superficiality. And Sojiro was led to believe yet another falsehood about modern life, that VCRs would go out of fashion.
Well then, we're off. Try not to burn the place to the ground. And in case you were wondering, I know you don't have work tonight.
Alco walked out of the drawing room smiling. Her grin was the cheap shot that left Sojiro speechless. As he scratched his chin, he was reminded that she was not someone to be trifled with. After watching the end of the drama between her housemates, Alice made for the reception area as well. Left alone in the room, Sojiro took his seat on the sofa. Well, it was certainly not easy making everything run smoothly around these parts. Until they came back, he could enjoy his crocodile watching in peace.
All right. Let's see if we can switch it up a little bit. We will have Kanye voice Awako, and Nancy, you can voice Alice, if you could please.
Okie doke.
And I will take over the narration. Good job, Kanye.
Thank you.
They took the subway from Misaki for 6 stations. From there, they rode another 3 stops by express train. After about an hour, Aoko and Alice arrived at Arisaka Station. While Misaki was a mixture of old and new architecture, Arisaka was a brand new town built in accordance with recent government ordinance. It was as though an entire town full of tall buildings sprouted up in the middle of nowhere. It was near the end of December, in the middle of winter break. Even the bustling plaza in Misaki was quiet compared to Arisaka in the evening. Whether it was the huge mall full of countless specialty stores, or the crowded multi-purpose auditorium, there really was something for everyone here. For that reason, beyond its local residents, Arisaka Station was crowded with people from far and wide.
Cool. That must be their fancy new performance arts center. It's supposed to have the biggest concert hall in the prefecture. I wonder what it's like inside. Look how much grander it is than the buildings around it.
They made their way to the aquarium, weaving through the crowds. Aoko might have been used to city life, but Alice was silently anxious. The people passing by must have thought this pale girl out of place, which Alice happened to agree with.
Oh, it says the big artist is coming summer next year. Oh my god, it's Pink Turdy! Alice, this says it'll be their first live performance in Japan!
Aoko exclaimed, overcome by excitement. This kind of pop rock band was right up Aoko's alley, but naturally, Alice did not seem very interested.
I'm more amazed by the Polish orchestra they've invited to open for them. It must be costing them a fortune. How incorrigible.
Aoko cursed under her breath before hurrying them along. Underneath the construction map read, with the support of Kuronju Group.
Ooh.
The aquarium they were looking for was on the top floor of a massive building. I always thought that was a little weird. An aquarium
An
on top of
aquarium?
a... Yeah,
Yeah, like, think about how much weight bearing that has to have
yeah.
on the top floor of
Uh-huh.
a building.
Uh-huh. Not only that, the transportation too.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe because it was no longer a new attraction, or perhaps it was because the first floor cinema drew the crowds. With only a few people scattered around the entrance, the atmosphere inside was very calm. It wasn't quiet, but desolate, and far removed from the hustle and bustle outside. Perhaps they were going for a museum-like mood. Alice quietly caught her breath, staring in awe. She was like a child seeing the circus for the first time, her eyes wide in anticipation and wonder.
It's to the lady's liking, I see. Good, good. I guess Sojiro's idea wasn't totally off the mark then, huh?
Aoko found herself smiling as well. There was a certain joy in seeing Alice's wonderment.
Not really. I just find rooftop aquariums to be kind of novel.
It is very novel. And
It's
what
quite
Trident said,
novel.
it's a really strong building.
Yeah, I'm still wondering about the structural integrity of having an aquarium on the top floor of a big building.
Yeah. According to the guide on the wall, the entrance to the aquarium was nearly as big as the Kuonji mansion's foyer. The outdoor penguin show was apparently suspended due to the star penguin Flippy undergoing treatment for an injury.
Oh,
It was an unfortunate state of affairs, but that did not stop Alice from continuing to read over the guide. Apparently, she was quite familiar with penguin shows. Then,
huh? I can't believe it.
Alice quietly whimpered, as if holding back a scream.
Hey, what's wrong?
Aoko said, still looking at the floor plan. It was rare to see Alice getting this emotional outside of the mansion. For some reason, she was trembling. Nothing seemed terribly off about the aquarium's offerings.
There's no giant tortoises.
No, what?
It's all wrong, Aoko. Why is there no giant tortoise exhibit?
Why? I don't know. Are giant tortoises even aquatic? Maybe it's because they take too much space.
Why, though? They have penguins. It's not fair. Look, they even have a dolphin. This is absurd.
It was a bitter pill for Alice to swallow. The idea that they did not have a giant tortoise, despite having a dolphin, had Alice's eyes hot with indignation.
Now that you mention it, penguins and dolphins are standard fare. You thought that would have at least a giant tortoise. What were they thinking?
Aoko said, certain something like a giant tortoise would be boring and unpopular. He was sensible enough to read the room, however, and kept her thoughts to herself.
Let's go, Alice. We have tickets, so we can skip the line.
A few moments after the giant tortoise fiasco, presenting the tickets they received from Sojiro, they headed toward the once popular entrance. From the entrance gate, the corridor stretched into a dark hallway completely illuminated in blue. Figures and faces became mere silhouettes in the darkness. It was no darkness born from magecraft, but a man-made area of twilight. A world of shadow and blue, the only light being from illuminated tank. The two witches continued walking down the artificial ocean corridor. Water tanks seemed like windows into hundreds of different worlds. Each had their own separate temperature and environment. It was as if they were snapshots of the same place at different times. Mesmerized by the refracting images of the ocean floor, the housemates' conversation grew sparse.
That reminds me, Alice. You have this huge mansion without a pool. What's up with that?
Figures. You come to an aquarium and that's what you think about. Wanting superfluous things is a bad habit of yours, Aoko.
Aw, a pool isn't superfluous. Besides, aren't pools more common in England than Japan? Or could it be that you can't swim?
I've spent enough time in a swimsuit. I often swam in the lake as a child. And I never once lost a race to our big Saint Bernard.
At St. Bernard? Wait, don't tell me. You had trouble with your breathing, didn't you?
Spare me the swimming lesson. Crawl, butterfly? The people who invented those would probably have fish anyway.
Clack, clack. Their pace was more delicate, solemn than a stroll along the beach. It was the sort of absent-minded chat one might hear between girls anywhere in the world. And here, the only thing to do was to look at blue screens. I'll go.
I'm surprised you're willing to leave him alone in the house. You're not worried he'll go snooping in the West Wing, are you?
He can't possibly be that foolish. Besides,
It'd save us the trouble if he did.
it's not that. I just don't think he's the type to break his word.
That he was not. Aoko nodded, her long hair waving back and forth, a certain gleam of surprise in her eyes. Onward, they meandered to the next aquatic world. Clack, clack, clack.
By the way, is this your first time in an aquarium?
Second, I went with a friend long ago.
And in there, they had a giant tortoise exhibit.
Yeah, man, what's up with this?
No, wait, really?
Yes, really. More than 6 years ago when I was still in England.
No, I mean the friend part. I thought you said you didn't have any friends.
That was a long time ago. We even had the same name. We used to play all the time, but we fell out of touch.
That's right. Alice must be a pretty common name over there. Here it's all Ryoko or Hanako and such.
Indeed. Or names referencing colors, like Aoko, Akako, Kuroko, Shirako.
They don't all end with code, don't they?
To each their own, a society of name. The swirling of the waters was dizzying, much like the hectic world of humans. Their hands swung back and forth as they walked toward the next world.
Incidentally, Aoko, what exactly is your plan for him?
Well, once our current issue is resolved and things calm down, I'll find the rune for erasing his memory, and he'll forget we ever existed. It won't be a bother for much longer.
A bother to whom? Me?
Oh, yeah, obviously. Wow, this fish is really pretty. Makes me want to swim. Hey, we should go to the beach next summer.
Real smooth topic change there.
Nice one, Aoko.
The beach. You mean by the ocean?
Of course. You know, fun under the hot summer sun, sand between your toes, watching the sunset on the horizon. We couldn't go this year, so why don't we go together next year?
Your optimism is exhausting. But that does sound nice. If we manage to survive until next summer, that is.
Clack, clack, clack. The two girls journeyed to the next oceanic wonderland, mutually taking in the sights. The visitors to these winter waters had begun to leave, satisfied by their tour. The sound of their footsteps heralded their farewell. An hour into the wayfaring sea voyage, losing themselves in the maze-like corridors of seemingly endless exhibits, they somehow found themselves on the next floor. There's 2 floors?
Holy heckin'.
Aoko had heard that the aquarium was situated on the top floor and was shocked to find out there was yet another above it. Look at this lighting! My goodness, I forgot. It's so good. Like you were saying, that they keep faithful to the actual lighting to everything.
They really do. I also really want to call out the really nice silhouettes they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Even the silhouettes weren't just silhouettes, right? They're backlit, there's texture on them. It's really nice.
Again, they like really took care in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like a 10-year-old visual novel, man. God.
Oh,
I know.
have we hit peak video game?
At least peak visual novel, at least.
Oh, that's
Oh.
true.
We will hit peak when we read Tsukimi Remake.
Oh my god.
Right. Alright. It was likely by design that the actual top floor could only be accessed from within the aquarium. Moments of intrigue such as this are what attractions were made for.
Alice?
Turning this way and that, she had found Alice had disappeared. Her housemate had just been there, however, and Aoko took to looking for her. She soon found her nearby. Her white overcoat shone brightly in front of the dimly lit exhibit. She was staring motionlessly into the water tank. Alice almost looked to be staring through it, as though distracted by something.
What's wrong, Alice? Are you feeling okay?
She spoke, hoping to snap her out of it. Alice's typically cold aura seemed to all have but left her.
Is it a rare fish? It looks like the tank they use for all the fish that don't fit anywhere else.
Alice gave a non-committal response. Just ahead of her gaze was a single shadow.
Wow, an ocean sunfish.
Alice remained motionless, unresponsive to Aoko's sarcasm. She stood in silence, watching the poor little fish, drifting listlessly in the tank where they put the fish that did not fit anywhere else, here, at the end of the hallway. To put it lightly, sunfish were not especially pleasant to look at. When looking at one, it begged the question of what direction evolution wanted to take with it.
And now I'm gonna go look.
They're not wrong. It looked like it's
Oh my.
right.
Oh my.
All right, I'm bringing up a picture for everyone else to reference because they're large too.
Yeah, they're big. They're also just like, what happened here?
So here's pictures of sunfish. They are ginormous,
And strange.
and there's a diver for reference. Again, they are huge.
Saphaline's like, oh, those guys. Like, this is a fish I don't think I've ever seen.
I only know about it because of Animal Crossing.
Oh, what?
Yep, you can catch one
Can
in.
you catch these?
Yep.
Yeah.
What? That's crazy.
It looked like it swam using rudder-like fins on its top and bottom, but lacked the grace of other fish. To Aoko, its eyes, body, and strange movements made it an awkward creature. But
Hey, Alice, let's check out the whale shark exhibit over there. Sounds really exciting, don't you think?
Alice, unmoved, fixated on the sunfish. It clumsily drifted around its tank, occasionally bumping into the glass as it turned.
Aoko, this little one can't swim well.
Alice extended her finger toward the glass, then retracted it, feeling childish.
Well, whatever. I suppose sunfish have their own charm.
Actually, Galatea has a good point. A two-story rooftop aquarium with a whale shark.
Right?
How the
Like-
hell did they bring it up here?
How? Did they, like, helicopter it in?
helicopter.
I think that would actually have to be the only way. Like, there's no way otherwise. Like,
You can't get it up the elevator.
no. It did not seem like Alice was going to budge. Resigning herself, Aoko stayed with Alice while she stared at the cushion-shaped fish. Kanya?
Huh. Sorry, I was reading through it to make sure it was Alka.
Hmm.
Huh. They have eyes like pufferfish. It also says here that the females can produce more eggs than any other known vertebrae, up to 300 million at a time. Neat. And the babies become prey to other fish, so in a way, giving birth to so many is a means of survival for them.
Though Aoko seemed taken in by the biological details of the fish, Alice couldn't have cared less. She was lost in the ebb and flow of emotions between wonder and woe with every clumsy bump of the fish into the glass. Out of nowhere, she softly spoke.
About before.
Huh? Before? When?
About him. About leaving the house in his care.
It seemed like Alice had returned to her normal self. There was that cold aura. Whether inside the mansion or out, that stubborn chill that pushed people away was back.
I haven't changed my mind. He is still a complete unknown. How can I trust someone I know nothing about?
I guess. But then why let him?
Because I know you, Aoko. You always make the right decision. So, I'm trusting your judgment on the matter.
It was true. She did not know Sojiro, nor had any intention to. But because of her trust in Aoko, she could trust in Aoko's decision to allow him to stay. It seemed Alice was challenging her own feelings. She said she could not trust someone she did not know. In other words, she wished to trust him. In order to do so, she needed to know more about him.
Well, I don't really know how to respond to that, Alice. Also, I had no idea you trusted me that much.
I do trust you. I may not be fond of you, but I trust you. Because we're partners in crime, aren't we?
Her white coat swayed to and fro. Just like that, their short excursion had come to an end. Straight ahead was the exit back to the real world. A step away from the exhibit was a step toward becoming better roommate.
Is that Alice?
Yep.
Such a kind face, but so clearly scarred.
One last small whisper. And with that, she bid farewell to the lonely figure in the tank. I hadn't thought of this, but maybe she views the sunfish as similar to Sojiro. Dopey, imposing.
Clumsy.
Yeah.
Not especially good at swimming.
Okay, let's have actually how are you two feeling on your time? Because we've been at this for 2 hours now.
How much more is left in this chapter?
I'm not too sure, but I feel like it shouldn't be too long. How much time do you have? If it's like 30 minutes, we can call it here.
Yeah, probably a good idea, actually.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a good, like, scene break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go ahead and place the bookmark right here.
Thanks, Balance.
Thank you
Thank you,
guys for coming in
Balance.
here.
No problem.
And as usual, it's always such a pleasure to go through this story with you guys, especially with people who aren't familiar with the story, you know? So definitely for me and Kanye, just observing everyone's reaction. What did you miss, Leah? You missed everything. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Hi,
true, yeah.
Leah.
How they at?
But with that said, we're going to go ahead and end the stream here. For everyone that came to listen to our read along with with our read along of Witch on the Holy Night, thank you very much. And let's see. Oh, it looks like Ren is playing Lethal Company with some voice actors, so we'll go ahead and raid into them.
Oh, God.
Rin may not be streaming, but this person is, and she's there right now. So, oh, whoops, I mistyped that. All right. So with that said, everyone, thank you again so much. Hopefully we can continue this again next week. We'll have to see.